right, so that was Ian's topic. Next is mine, and I kind of got this topic after watching you guys do Frame Trap this week, and you were talking about movies and how I don't want to get too into this because I have to say I kind of disagree on how bad Kingsglaive was. Thought that was actually a solid movie, though.
Well, don't get me wrong. I had a blast.
Yeah,
I loved watching it
yeah.
with everybody. So
Some of the
yeah,
editing was rough. Like I noticed that a lot of times in between scenes they would fade in and out, and it almost made it feel like a trailer in a sense.
yeah,
That
it
was
was
really weird.
very
There was definitely some janky stuff in there. I can agree with that. But
yeah,
basically, you were talking about how that had a lot of what you felt like was really rough kind of cinematography and just the general aspect of filmmaking. And then
hmm
you were referencing movies like Mad Max Fury Road and movies that really like know what they're doing, know how to um, shoot, and know how to like make something look good. Um, and you were specifically talking about action. For me, like today's TV shows, everything is shot without a tripod, so
hmm
everything is like you're looking at dialogue between two characters, and it's basically like kind of shaking and like the camera's moving just a little bit.
yeah,
Um, I'm really not a fan of that because whenever you put it on a tripod, which is more of a film thing than TV at this point in their current state, um, but it always looks good, and especially when I'm watching two characters just talk back and forth, I don't really need movement in that to keep me going. I like it to just
right.
be a really clear and clean looking shot. So what I was noticing, I was actually playing Witcher while I was watching you guys do Frame Trap, and during the cutscenes in The Witcher, of course, the camera isn't on a tripod because it's all made up and
Right.
it's a video game, but it seems like it's on a tripod. The camera doesn't move. It's very solid, and it's not like bobbing up and down like someone would if they were holding a camera, as opposed to Assassin's Creed Unity, which I'm also playing. And the cutscenes in that game, it's almost like there's a cameraman without a tripod. There's a little bit of
Right.
head bob, and it moves around a little bit. It looks more like a modern TV show. So I guess the topic, or the title of my topic, is cinematography and gaming, and also just like the filmmaking style of gaming. I wanted to pick your brain about this, um, because, like I said, I see a lot of these cutscenes that are trying to emulate the way TV looks today. Because games are just trying to do that in general with episodics and stuff like that. And I really commend The Witcher because not only do they actually have these clean and clear shots, but the cinematography in The Witcher is absolutely unmatched. You can watch these shots and you can just tell that whoever decided to stage the shot the way that they did, they knew what the hell they were doing. They know exactly like what the rule of thirds is. They know how to
hmm
frame a shot. They know how to make it look good, and they know how to use the background to their advantage. So, um, I guess yeah. Just tell me what you think about the current state of. I'm using the word cinematography, even though of course that's not cinematography is not a part of gaming necessarily.
Yeah.
But just like the filmmaking aspect of gaming, the way it looks, the way it feels, especially in the cutscenes. Give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think sort of just starting springboarding from what you were saying about TV, like there, it's all about style and uh, quality. Like anything else. Like if if your if your scene is just, I mean, I haven't played on Assassin's Creed Unity, but like sometimes people move the camera if they're not confident in how interesting the content is.
Yep.
And so like someone will start shaking the camera all over the place to make something feel exciting.
Right.
Or like in their mind, they're like, "Oh, we're really gonna pep this up, jazz it up by injecting some movement into the frame here,"
Right.
and like, kind of yeah, the 99-cent store version of that is to just handhold the camera, zoom in a lot, make it really shaky,
Yeah.
and a lot of times that's not in service of anything, and that's when you notice it being pointless because, like I said, yeah, it's just not helping. It's artificial.
Right.
Whereas if you think of that style of camera work and put it into something like The Witcher, there would, I think, be a way to do it.
Yeah.
But it's a totally different style choice, and I think that the choice they made with Witcher was, I mean, for lack of a better word, to just try to be really classy, you know, and very high art kind of classic filmmaking styles with dollies and static shots and really well framed shots. And I think, you know, there are good examples of handheld and bad examples of handheld.
Sure.
And good examples of people who never move the camera and bad examples of that.
The green grasses, as they were.
Yeah. I mean, like, Greengrass goes bananas when he doesn't need to.
Right.
And I mean, you know, like I was saying on our thing, like, I am not a real big fan of shaky camera combat.
Right.
Because generally it is just artificially, you know, adding excitement. And there's a really good Every Frame a Painting on YouTube. Someone shared with me. I thought I'd seen all of them, but this one seemed fresh to me, so maybe I hadn't. But it was about Jackie Chan and the way that his movies and work kind of work. And Jackie Chan says in a better way than exactly what I was saying on the podcast the other day was, if the camera's moving a lot, it means your actor doesn't know how to fight.
Yep.
Generally.
Yep.
Because you're hiding it. And in games, I think that sort of the same thing is kind of true, where, like, if you feel like the story's not good enough, or if you feel like the action isn't going to sell the energy, you do the scene and then have the camera, you know, you keyframe the camera movement all over the place to try to pep it up. And I think that a game like Assassin's Creed Unity has a very kind of energetic feel to it already.
Sure.
So I could see them getting into that trap sort of where they lean on it too hard.
Yeah.
Because the weird thing about Assassin's Creed games is the ones I've played, because they have that modern storytelling, like, framing device.
Yeah.
The games feel modern even when they're in the past.
That's a very good point. I agree.
Right? So like the way that they treat those games is like, oh yeah, this is Italy, but ancient Italy 2014
Right.
style, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we're going to make the camera move and there's little glitching and artifacting all over the place. Whereas The Witcher, they want it to feel fantasy. They want it to feel older.
Yeah.
Still exciting, but the feel is way different. I'm trying to think of examples of video games that do that where I think they really don't need to. I mean, sci-fi games where they zoom in and shake the camera and stuff, it feels natural, right? Because it feels more like you're aware of the camera.
Yeah.
I guess that's what it is like, in your video game, do you want to be aware of the camera or not? And the weird example to me is the Tomb Raider games. People have talked about this a lot, but I have a pet peeve when stuff gets on the camera.
Oh my gosh,
movies.
I was just about to bring this up.
Yeah, like when stuff gets on the camera, but there isn't supposed to be a camera there.
Yeah, if it's not found footage.
Right. I'm like, whoa, okay, immersion destroyed.
Yeah, like,
and
what?
it's really funny in games like Tomb Raider when they add that, because there isn't a camera there. So they're just, I mean, it's a style choice, you know, whatever, more power to you, but it's just very weird because sort of intrinsically along with that, it's, I think, comforting on a subconscious level, if not on a conscious level, because if something's getting on the camera, that means that even subconsciously you're going to kind of think, okay, maybe there's a camera person there too.
Yeah.
So Laura's not really alone in the wilderness. She's got her camera crew there. She's fine. Like, they've probably got a craft services booth, you know, down around that hill where it's off the shot, you know, so it kind of lowers the stakes in a weird way, but their intention is to increase the stakes.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's just me.
No.
But I mean, this is a tangent, but like that's why I don't like District 9, because for the first half of that movie, the camera person exists.
Uh-huh.
And then suddenly, without warning, without a visual change that I recall, the police, like the main guy's hiding in the tall grass, and the cameraman is just standing up, and the police are looking for him, and they just don't see the cameraman. They look right over by him and they just don't see him. And then I'm like in the theater, I'm just like, okay, I
Yeah.
guess there isn't a cameraman anymore. Like it's a movie now instead of a documentary, where it had been a documentary previously.
Right.
It's it's almost as though like if a Christopher Guest like mockumentary just suddenly became like a Michael Bay movie. It's just like this doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I think it's a weird choice to do stuff like that. Um, like Lara Croft games especially, because you know they want it to, the reason they're doing it is because they want it to be gritty and they want it to be
Yeah.
exciting and they want it to be dirty and grimy, and that makes sense. But on the other hand, it is like a very weird style choice.
You have to frame it from the beginning with that being understood. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's funny that you mentioned that because um, as much as I was just praising The Witcher for all these style choices that I think they got right, I just watched a cutscene where a guy got punched in the face and he flipped his head and the spit ran across the camera, and I was like, why?
Weird.
Like, you're totally destroying the immersion. You're totally breaking your own rules.
Yeah.
And like Walking Dead, the TV show will do that where some zombie gets shot in the face and his guts fly all over the camera. And I'm like, how are the zombies not eating the cameraman? Like,
Right.
if,
Exactly.
if that's the world we're living in, so
You can't have it both ways. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So
Or like Children of Men, where you can use the blood on the screen to track where the edits are,
Right.
because it's fake. I'm like, you added fake CG blood to the camera in a single take, quote unquote single take movie,
yeah,
but you didn't want it to stay there the whole time, so you digitally just faded it away later. It's like, come on.
yeah, yeah. That's another thing is Children of Men does so many things right in most of its
Yeah.
camera movement, and then yeah, the breaking of immersion. I really don't think that's too far of a tangent because this is the type of nitty gritty I wanted to get into. Yeah, breaking that immersion is one thing that I think is really egregious, and that's in film, TV, games, whatever.
Yeah.
But specifically, I see with games that, like I said earlier, they're really trying to emulate mostly TV, but also some movies. They're trying because of the fact that so many people talk about games that as if they aren't art. People act like they're childish and that they don't really tell like compelling stories and stuff like that. I think as gamers we know that to be untrue, but I feel like games and game makers are trying to prove themselves so much that they're willing to just emulate what they see on TV. Well, this is the way that they shoot the TV shows. This is the way the camera shots are framed. Like, why don't we just do that the same way? And I'm like, well, really, you guys have more freedom than movies or TV ever could because
Yeah.
you don't have the limitations. There is no cameraman. Like, you could have the shot coming from anywhere in the vicinity of your characters because, cameramen can't fly, but you could have your camera flying because it doesn't actually exist. It's like you're putting up creative boundaries when you really shouldn't have any.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like even calling it a camera, like
Yeah.
that's how everyone talks about it, and it's more of like it's just the point of view,
Right.
It's the viewport. You could call it whatever because there's not a camera there.
Yeah.
There's a digital facsimile of a camera,
Right.
and it's just interesting that's. I think that it works on both sides of the fence, like the game creation side and the game consumption side, is that there is this filmic language that's just so built into society and
Right.
like people's understanding of how to digest narrative.
Yeah.
And
Visual
so,
narrative.
exactly. And so, like, even like if you go into Unreal 4 engine, you can put cameras around and then you can cut between them. And then if you're playing a game, some games are a single take,
Yeah.
but no one thinks about that because it's a game, right?
Right.
And then games like 30 Flights of Loving, where there are sudden edits just when you don't expect them, and it's very filmic. Like Brendan does a really good job with that, doing filmic editing in games, and he's lauded for that because it is kind of unexpected. And I think that cutscenes in general, other stuff, play it so kind of, they play it so average when it comes to filmmaking choices, for
Right.
lack of a better term, uh, that it does just feel like, most game cutscenes are, you could compare them to just like CSI.
Yeah.
Like it's just run of them, not to crap on CSI or anything, but like it's just very cookie cutter, safe kind of by the numbers kind of filmmaking. It's like a
Right.
factory, and that's not to say that you can't have artistic things coming out of those situations, but
Sure.
uh, I don't know. I wonder if games really leaned on the language more, uh, because yeah, I think it is more like procedural TV. But if they leaned more on film and more on these interesting artistic choices, I wonder. Like I know that people would be down with it. I think they would get it,
Right.
and you could do things like cutting forward in time more often, and uh, these kinds of things. I mean, say what you will about The Last of Us does that, and it's really pretty cool how it jumps forward like X years,
Right.
and I like stuff like that. I think it's really cool to make choices like that. But even that game plays it very. It's very safe when it comes to filmmaking.
Sure.
If you're looking at it just as a cinematic narrative experience, it's basically the Avengers, um, and you wonder if they thought about the motivations of the shots and the framing and stuff like that. I think they I mean, Naughty Dog, I imagine, does, but uh, I don't know. It's interesting. You don't see a lot of games take really out there filmmaking choices. I mean, I think about, speaking of TV, I think about Mr. Robot,
Yeah.
and the framing and the cutting that they do in that is just so bonkers, but it's motivated and called for by the kind of style and the emotions and the narrative of the show.
It works within the context.
Yeah, and if more games did bold choices like that, I wonder if it would work. I mean, the problem is, think about like Telltale. If Telltale framed a shot like Mr. Robot frames all their shots, where there's somebody just like down in the corner,
Right.
everyone would just assume it was a glitch.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'd just be
Exactly.
like, "Oh, the camera got all off target." Like, whoops. So I wonder. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder how far people can go before people will be like, "Oh, this is broken."
Right. Yeah. I mean, like you said, there's TV and movies. There's constantly filmmakers that come out and put something out there that is taking chances and that is fresh and different, and I definitely don't think you see that in games. Part of the reason, in my mind, being the fact that these people aren't trained in the art of film or the art of cinematography and shooting cameras. They're game makers, not filmmakers, and so that's probably not their focus or their expertise in some sense. I'm sure there's people in the gaming industry that know way more than I do about filmmaking, but regardless, I don't think that's the general majority of all game makers. And so um, it'll be interesting. I definitely think you'll see in the future as games do become more of a storytelling medium. I definitely think you'll see those chances taking place. But yeah, at this point, it kind of seems like they're really just watching their favorite TV shows or movies and being like, yeah, let's try to do that. Let's try to, make it look good like a movie or make it look good like a TV show. And
Right.
hopefully, I think in the future, you'll start to see more chances being taken. So,
The one leg up that games have that TV and movies and even books and stuff don't is culpability of the player character, of the human being playing your game.
the interactivity.
Yeah, and like specifically games that play that against your expectation. I mean, like
Yeah.
Shadow of the Colossus or BioShock to certain extents and stuff like that, where I mean, it's most effective when you're actually offered a choice, and
Right.
then the game says, "Look at what you've done," reap what you have sown. But that's something that I think I want more games to lean on and explore in more interesting ways. Because yeah, we've got all these games that are, the BioWare games, the Witcher games, where it's like you have choices and they change things at the end, And like sometimes, yeah, you get a morally gray ending or a bad ending or a good ending and
Right.
stuff like that. But as 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 computers get more complicated, and AI can get more nuanced, I think that we're going to see more and more opportunities for games to divorce themselves from this filmic kind of style and really lean on the strengths that they have inherent to their own systems, which is unexpected developments and,
Mm.
sort of like the promise of what No Man's Sky was supposed to kind of be,
Yes.
where like these unplanned things can happen. And I mean, I can't wait until, I mean, I think by the time we're 50, 60 years old, like down the road, 20, 30 years, AI will be advanced enough that, maybe the singularity hasn't happened yet, but like it'll be advanced enough where an AI character could do something that the creators of the game didn't script,
Yes, that's what
and
I'm looking for.
that like shocks people and surprises you, and there's a logic to it and still makes narrative sense, but you go, "Oh man," like, and makes you feel bad. Like maybe a choice you made back in the day like screwed this AI character over royally,
Yeah.
and then this AI character comes at you like not with violence but with emotions and just says, "Hey, you really messed my life up."
Right.
Like, why'd you do that? And then you could just be like, "Oh my god, I'm a monster," And I think films can do that where they interrogate the viewer and stuff like that, but like
Yeah.
games can really do it because it's you doing it.
Right.
So
Yeah. I mean, I think we're actually closer to that than 20 or 30 years. I think AI within video games going off script is kind of the next push for me as far as
yeah,
where our video games going. Because yeah, like you said, when a developer can put in the parameters and then the AI can just run wild with it. I mean, think how crazy that would be. People freak out about games like Heavy Rain, where it's like,
yeah,
oh, well, my playthrough is going to be totally different than yours. I mean, think how many possibilities you would have if the AI were able to just completely run wild.
yeah.
That's really endless possibilities. Another
It'd be
thing
insane.
I wanted to point out, you were talking about Mr. Robot, and not to spoil Mr. Robot because everybody should watch that, but that show deals a lot with an unreliable narrator,
Yeah.
and you really don't see that in video games. Like I can't even think of a single game, hardly at all, that would be a good example of that.
I'm wondering, I mean, like, my memory is very hazy on Max Payne, but I feel like that might have been in there.
Yeah, yeah, because he's
And
doing so many drugs and stuff.
maybe Alan Wake or, I mean, hell, Final Fantasy VII to some extent. Like, Cloud is confused at the very least. Um, yeah. But, oh, yeah, I love a good unreliable narrator,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, when
Oh,
it's done right,
boy.
like Mr. Robot, it's something you don't even experience it very often in film and TV.
Yeah.
But yeah, once we start seeing, I think you could do that if you have this AI that's able to just run wild, because then it can say, "Oh, I'm going to trick you a little bit and kind of mess around with your brain." So, um,
I'd love a video game where you think you're the hero the whole time
yep,
because the character keeps telling you that,
yeah,
and then at the end you're like, "Oh, I'm a monster.
yeah,
Like I'm the bad guy here."
yeah,
Like you find out.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think games have, people talk about, oh well, VR is the next way we're gonna play games, the next revolution for games. But I think, just sitting on a console with a controller in your hand, looking at a TV, I still think there's a very long way to go that games
Yeah.
could come into not only storytelling but gameplay and just the way games work. So I'm excited to see the future, man.
Yeah, I think better games is always the next wave, right?
Yeah,
Like hopefully.
true. Yeah.